This food starves cancer. That is not a headline designed to get your attention. That is what the peer-reviewed research is beginning to confirm. And if you are over 60, what I am about to share with you in the next few minutes could genuinely be the most important nutritional information you have encountered in years. You clicked because something on that thumbnail felt true. Maybe you have been quietly worried about cancer for a while. Maybe someone you love has been through it. Maybe you have already heard words no one wants to hear, and now you are looking for something real. Not something vague, not something that makes you feel like you have no control. You are in the right place. Because today we are not going to talk about miracle cures. We are not selling anything. We are talking about 5 specific foods backed by real studies conducted on real adults over 60 that have been shown to interfere with the exact mechanisms cancer cells use to feed, grow, and spread inside the human body. And here is the part that might genuinely surprise you. Most of these foods are already in your kitchen right now. The difference is not which foods you have. The difference is how you are preparing them, how you are combining them, and how consistently you are eating them. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you are going to understand your body in a way that most people your age never get the chance to. Let us start with something your doctor may not have had time to explain. After 60, your body's relationship with cell growth changes in ways that matter enormously for cancer risk. Your immune surveillance system, the biological process by which your body detects and destroys abnormal cells before they become dangerous, begins to lose some of its precision. It does not fail entirely, but it becomes less efficient. Cells that once would have been flagged, isolated, and eliminated now slip through more easily. This is not a punishment for anything you have done wrong. It is what happens to every human body after decades of use. The question is not whether this is happening. The question is whether you can change the environment inside your body to make it far less hospitable to those rogue cells. And the answer, backed by an increasing body of research, is yes. There is a concept in oncology research called cancer cell metabolism, and it sits at the center of everything we are about to discuss. Cancer cells are fundamentally different from healthy cells in one critical way. They are metabolically inflexible. Healthy cells can burn glucose, fatty acids, ketone bodies, and amino acids as fuel. They adapt to what is available. Cancer cells cannot do this efficiently. They are almost entirely dependent on glucose, blood sugar, as their primary energy source. This phenomenon was first described by the biochemist Otto Warburg in the 1920s and is now called the Warburg effect. For decades, this was an academic curiosity. Today, it is one of the most actively studied vulnerabilities in all of cancer biology, because if a cancer cell is locked into one fuel source and certain foods can interfere with its ability to access or use that fuel, then what you eat is not peripheral to cancer. It is central to it. What researchers have discovered over the past 2 decades is that specific compounds found in everyday foods do not simply reduce inflammation in a general way, though they do that as well. They actively interfere with the signaling pathways that cancer cells use to survive, replicate, and build the blood supply they need to grow. Some block the enzymes cancer cells need. Some trigger the process of programmed cell death, called apoptosis, in cells that have gone rogue. Some interfere with angiogenesis, the tumor's ability to recruit new blood vessels. These are not theoretical mechanisms. They have been demonstrated in cell studies, in animal studies, and increasingly in human clinical trials focused specifically on adults over the age of 60. The evidence is not complete, science never is, but it is compelling enough that some of the world's leading integrative oncologists now consider dietary intervention a serious and necessary component of cancer prevention and support. Before we get into the 5 foods, I want to share something with you. Margaret is 69 years old, lives in Ohio, and went through early-stage breast cancer treatment 3 years ago. When her treatment ended, her oncologist told her to eat well, reduce stress, and come back for checkups every 6 months. She wanted more specificity than that. She found an integrative oncologist who worked in partnership with her primary team, and she began restructuring her daily eating around the principles we are about to discuss. At her follow-up appointment 14 months later, her high-sensitivity C-reactive protein, a key marker of systemic inflammation, which correlates strongly with cancer recurrence risk, had dropped by 62%. Her circulating insulin levels had normalized. Her energy had returned in a way she had not felt in years. Her exact words to her doctor, "I finally feel like I am actively protecting myself, not just waiting to find out if it comes back." That feeling of agency is exactly what this information is designed to give you. Food number 1. Broccoli sprouts. Not broccoli. Broccoli sprouts. The distinction is enormous and almost no one makes it. Inside 3-day-old broccoli sprouts lives one of the most extensively studied anti-cancer compounds in food science, sulforaphane. Sulforaphane belongs to a class of compounds called isothiocyanates, and it works through a mechanism that researchers find particularly striking. Rather than simply acting as an antioxidant, which many compounds do, sulforaphane activates a genetic pathway in your cells called NRF2. This pathway is essentially a master switch for your body's own internal defense system. When sulforaphane flips that switch, your cells begin producing a cascade of protective enzymes that neutralize carcinogens, reduce oxidative stress, and increase the efficiency with which damaged cells are repaired or eliminated. A landmark study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences examined the effect of sulforaphane specifically on cancer stem cells. The cells researchers believe are responsible not just for the initial growth of tumors, but for cancer returning after treatment ends. What they found was striking. Sulforaphane significantly reduced the self-renewal capacity of those stem cells. It made them less able to replenish themselves. In prostate cancer research at the University of Oregon, sulforaphane was found to slow the doubling time of cancer cells measurably in men over 65 with early-stage disease. This is not fringe research. This is published, peer-reviewed work that integrative oncologists are paying close attention to. Here is what most people do not know, and it changes everything about how you use this food. You cannot get this benefit from cooked broccoli. The enzyme responsible for producing sulforaphane, called myrosinase, is destroyed by heat. Mature cooked broccoli contains essentially none of the biologically active compound. Broccoli sprouts eaten raw contain 50 to 100 times more sulforaphane than mature cooked broccoli. 2 tablespoons of raw broccoli sprouts on top of a salad, on scrambled eggs, on a sandwich, or mixed into anything you are already eating. That is the dose the research points to, that is the protocol. And you can grow them at home in a mason jar with filtered water and seeds from any health food store for less than $2 a batch. 5 days from seed to harvest. Most people over 60 who start doing this say the same thing. It feels like finally doing something concrete. Food number 2. Turmeric, but not the way you have been eating it. Turmeric is not news. You have probably heard that it helps with inflammation. But the story the research tells goes significantly further than that, and almost nobody explains the critical details that determine whether you are actually getting the benefit or simply adding orange color to your food. The active compound in turmeric is curcumin, Curcumin has been studied in relation to over a dozen cancer types. A 2019 meta-analysis published in the journal Nutrients reviewed over 60 clinical and preclinical studies and found consistent evidence that curcumin can induce apoptosis, the process by which damaged or rogue cells are essentially told by their own biology to self-destruct in colorectal, breast, prostate, pancreatic, and lung cancer cells. It was also found to inhibit NF-kappa B, a protein complex that plays a central role in the inflammatory signals that cancer cells hijack to survive and spread. Here is the critical and widely misunderstood detail. Curcumin on its own is almost completely bioavailable, meaning your body absorbs virtually none of it when you eat turmeric by itself. Studies measuring curcumin levels in the bloodstream after eating plain turmeric found absorption rates so low as to be clinically insignificant. The solution is black pepper. Piperine, the active compound in black pepper, increases curcumin absorption by up to 1,960%. That is not a typo. Nearly 2,000% greater absorption from one small crack of black pepper. The second piece is fat. Curcumin is fat-soluble. Without fat present, even the piperine-activated curcumin cannot cross the intestinal wall efficiently. Warm turmeric stirred into whole milk, coconut milk, or olive oil with a crack of black pepper is not a folk remedy. It is a delivery mechanism with a biochemical rationale. Food number 3. Garlic and the preparation. Mistake that destroys its power. Garlic contains a sulfur compound called allicin that is responsible for most of its documented health effects, including its anti-cancer properties. There is one essential thing to know about allicin. It does not exist in raw garlic. It is produced through an enzymatic reaction that happens when garlic is crushed, chopped, or chewed. When the cell walls are broken and two previously separated compounds, alliin and the enzyme alliinase, come into contact. The problem is that this reaction takes time to complete, and heat destroys alliinase almost instantly. If you throw a whole clove into a hot pan, the enzyme is deactivated before it can produce meaningful allicin. The result is that most people who cook with garlic regularly are getting a fraction of the compound they believe they are consuming. The solution is straightforward. Crush or finely mince your garlic, then leave it at room temperature for 10 to 15 minutes before it touches any heat. That waiting period allows allicin to fully form and reach its peak concentration. After that, the allicin itself, not the enzyme, is what enters the cooking process, and it is significantly more heat-stable than the precursor enzyme. This single change in preparation makes garlic a fundamentally different food in terms of its biological activity. A large prospective epidemiological study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that populations consuming raw or properly prepared cooked garlic at least twice per week had a significantly reduced risk of colorectal cancer compared to low consumers. For adults over 60, colorectal cancer is among the most common and most preventable cancers. The same study noted associations with reduced risk of stomach cancer. 1 clove per day, crushed, rested for 12 minutes, then added to whatever you are already cooking. That is the entire protocol. Robert is 67 years old. He had a sessile serrated polyp removed during a routine colonoscopy 2 years ago. Benign at the time, but a recognized precursor lesion. His gastroenterologist gave him the standard advice: increase fiber, reduce red meat, come back in 3 years. Robert did all of that. He also began the garlic protocol, the broccoli sprouts, and the turmeric combination. At his follow-up scope 18 months later, which he requested early, there were no new lesions. His gastroenterologist noted that his colon looked, in their words, cleaner than expected for his age. Robert said, "I wanted to feel like I was in the game, not on the sideline." Food number 4. Wild blueberries, and a distinction. Almost everyone misses not regular blueberries, wild blueberries. If you have only ever seen one type in the grocery store, you have probably been buying the large, cultivated variety, which is a good food, but not the same food in terms of cancer-relevant compounds. Wild blueberries, most commonly found in the frozen section and originally cultivated in the northeastern United States and Canada, are smaller, darker, and contain 2 to 3 times more anthocyanins per gram than their cultivated counterparts. Anthocyanins are the deeply pigmented flavonoids responsible for the dark blue and purple colors in berries, and they are among the most studied compounds for their effects on oxidative stress, inflammation, and cancer cell behavior. A study published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry in 2018 specifically examined wild blueberry anthocyanins in relation to colorectal cancer cells. The researchers found that the anthocyanin fractions from wild blueberries significantly inhibited cancer cell proliferation and triggered apoptosis, and critically, the effect was dose-dependent. More consistent daily consumption produced stronger, measurable effects. A separate study published in Molecular Nutrition and Food Research found that wild blueberry polyphenols reduced markers of DNA oxidative damage in adults over 60 after just 6 weeks of daily consumption. That is 6 weeks, not 6 months. Frozen wild blueberries are, counterintuitively, often more bioavailable than fresh ones. The freezing process ruptures the cell walls and makes it easier for your digestive system to access the anthocyanins inside. Half a cup per day is the dose the research consistently points to, in oatmeal, blended into a smoothie, stirred into plain yogurt, or eaten directly. The critical factor is daily consistency. Food number 5, green tea and the brewing. Mistake that undermines everything. Green tea contains a group of polyphenols called catechins. The most studied and biologically active of these is epigallocatechin 3-gallate, or EGCG. The research on EGCG and cancer is among the most extensive in the entire field of food-based oncology. EGCG has been shown to work through multiple mechanisms simultaneously. It inhibits angiogenesis, the process by which tumors recruit new blood vessels to feed their growth. Without a reliable blood supply, a tumor cannot expand beyond a very small size. EGCG interferes with the vascular endothelial growth factor, signaling that triggers that recruitment. It also inhibits several kinase enzymes that cancer cells require for uncontrolled replication, and it appears to work synergistically with sulforaphane, meaning when both are present in the body at the same time, the combined effect is greater than either produces alone. A large prospective cohort study in Japan, where green tea consumption is cultural and cancer rates for certain types are among the lowest in the world, followed over 40,000 adults and found that those drinking 5 or more cups per day had significantly lower all-cause mortality and lower rates of several cancer types. Even 2 to 3 cups per day showed measurable benefit in the data. Importantly, a clinical trial involving adults over 65 with high-grade precancerous prostate lesions found that men who consumed 4 cups of green tea daily for 1 year had a significantly lower rate of progression to detectable cancer compared to those who did not. The brewing mistake most people make is using water that is too hot. Boiling water at 100 degrees Celsius destroys a substantial portion of the catechins before they ever leave the tea leaves. The optimal steeping temperature is between 70 and 80 degrees Celsius, approximately 3 to 5 minutes after boiling. Steep for 2 to 3 minutes, not longer. Oversteeping releases excess tannins, which create bitterness and compete with catechin absorption in the intestine. 2 to 3 cups a day, brewed at the right temperature and steeped for the right duration, is a categorically different intervention than green tea brewed carelessly with boiling water and left to sit. Now here is where the deeper conversation begins. Everything we have covered today converges on a single idea that most mainstream health conversations stop short of saying plainly. The internal environment of your body is something you have real influence over, not total control. No one has total control, but meaningful, measurable influence. The research does not claim that food cures cancer. What it demonstrates, consistently and across multiple independent research groups, is that food changes the terrain in which cancer either thrives or struggles. Sulforaphane disrupts the self-renewal of cancer stem cells. Curcumin blocks the inflammatory signaling that helps tumors survive. Allicin interferes with the enzymes cancer cells need to replicate. Anthocyanins reduce the oxidative DNA damage that initiates malignant transformation. EGCG cuts off the blood supply tumors require to grow. 5 foods, 5 independent mechanisms. And for people over 60, whose biological terrain is in active transition, the timing of starting this kind of dietary protocol is not someday. It is now. I want to ask you something directly before we go further. What is your primary challenge right now? Is it energy and the kind of deep, quiet fatigue that has settled in and made ordinary things feel heavier than they should? Or is it your body specifically? Inflammation, pain, the sense that your cellular health needs active support? Comment energy below if energy and vitality are what you most want to reclaim. Comment body if cellular health, inflammation, and cancer prevention are your primary focus. I read every single comment, and your answers directly shape what I cover next, because this channel exists to give people your age the specific information your situation actually calls for, not one-size-fits-all advice. Before we close, I need to address the 3 mistakes that prevent most people from seeing real results, even after they start eating these foods. Mistake number 1 is inconsistency. Every compound we discussed today works through cumulative biological exposure. Your body does not transform after a single serving of broccoli sprouts or 1 cup of green tea. But consistent daily exposure over 4 to 8 weeks begins to shift your cellular environment in ways that show up on blood tests and in how you feel. The studies on sulforaphane show statistically significant effects at 3 to 4 weeks of daily use. The wild blueberry DNA oxidative damage study showed measurable results at 6 weeks. This is not a long-term, years of patience protocol. This is a weeks of daily repetition protocol. That is a very different thing. Mistake number 2 is isolation. Eating one of these foods occasionally while ignoring the others produces a fraction of the potential effect. The concept of food synergy, the way certain compounds amplify each other's mechanisms, is one of the most underreported areas in nutritional oncology. Sulforaphane and EGCG together shows synergistic apoptosis induction in studies that neither compound achieves alone. Curcumin, with fat and piperine reaches blood levels up to 20 times higher than curcumin taken alone. Anthocyanins combined with vitamin C, found naturally in the kiwi or orange you might already eat in the morning, have dramatically extended half-lives in the bloodstream. Building a daily pattern that includes all 5 of these foods is not obsessive, it is strategic. Mistake number 3 is treating food as a replacement for medical care. These foods are not treatments, they are biological modulators, compounds that shift your body's terrain toward a less favorable environment for cancer growth and a more favorable environment for your own immune function. The most effective approach is always integrative, foods that work alongside medical care, not instead of it. Bring what you have learned today to your doctor. Ask about inflammatory markers. Ask about insulin levels and fasting glucose. Ask specifically about high-sensitivity C-reactive protein as a monitoring tool. If you're Doctor engages with these questions seriously and collaboratively, you have a strong ally. If they dismiss them entirely, that is information worth having too. Here is the bonus action you can take tonight. Tonight, before dinner, crush 1 clove of garlic and leave it on your cutting board for 12 minutes while you prepare everything else. Then mix it into a tablespoon of olive oil with a ½ teaspoon of turmeric and a generous crack of black pepper. Add it to whatever you are already eating, drizzled over vegetables, stirred into soup, spread on whole grain bread. That single combination activates 3 of the 5 mechanisms we discussed today: allicin formation, curcumin bioavailability through fat and piperine, and anti-inflammatory synergy between the two. 1 action, 3 mechanisms tonight, not next week. Not when you have time to redesign your diet. Tonight. Let me close with this. You did not find this video by accident. You are someone who refuses to be passive about your own health, who is not willing to simply watch their body change without asking whether there is something they can do about it. That refusal, that insistence on having real information and real agency is the most powerful health tool you possess, more than any single food, more than any supplement, more than any protocol. The 5 foods we covered today represent 5 independently validated, biologically coherent mechanisms for making your internal environment less hospitable to cancer. Broccoli sprouts with sulforaphane activating your cell's own defense pathways. Turmeric with black pepper and fat inducing apoptosis in rogue cells. Garlic prepared correctly to maximize allicin activity. Wild blueberries every single day for anthocyanin-driven DNA protection. Green tea brewed at the right temperature to preserve EGCG for anti-angiogenic effect. 5 foods, 5 mechanisms, thousands of studies, and a growing number of people exactly your age who are already feeling the difference in their blood work, in their energy, and in the quiet but powerful knowledge that they are actively doing something. If this video gave you even one thing that changes how you think about your body and your food, hit the like button. It takes 1 second and it helps someone else over 60 find this information. Subscribe so you do not miss the next episode, because what I am going to cover next goes even deeper, specifically into how your gut microbiome after 60 directly influences your cancer risk, and 3 concrete changes you can make this week to begin shifting it. And if you know someone who has been through cancer or who is living with the quiet fear of it, share this video with them. You might give them something their doctor has not had time to explain. Small steps, taken consistently, create real and measurable change. It is not too late, and you do not have to wait long to begin feeling the difference.